It's Lee Terrier from PW Mania with the one, the only SoCal Val. Val, how are you doing?
I am so well, and I'm so glad that you could join me in your busy arena. I know a lot's going on back there. I'm just boring in my own office, but I'm so thrilled to chat with you today.
Pandemonium here. If you saw what I'm hiding, as we were just saying off air, I'm so glad that I was able to find a nice little background that seems to work and I don't get lost in it. But thank
Perfect.
you very much for coming. And obviously, start with the one and the only. It's clobbering time. Progress Wrestling, all in weekend, big weekend. I don't think I've ever known a weekend outside of WrestleMania week, especially
Right.
not in the UK, that is like this. I mean, how excited are you?
I'm so excited. And I'm so thrilled that, people are getting different variations of wrestling and we have like a few things to choose from. Obviously, I've been with Progress for a little over a year now. And coming from the States, I'd always heard of Progress being the best in the UK. I can now confirm and guarantee that that is exactly what Progress Wrestling is. And for lack of a better term, we keep progressing into bigger and better things. And this is going to be a show that is not only going to be a lot of fun, but it showcases so many talents that if anyone's coming for the first time, they're really going to be in for a treat.
Yeah, and so you've been with the company for just over a year. How did that come about and how are you finding it?
It's amazing. And I'll tell you, when I first did a show for them, it was the all-female show, and it was Who Run the World. And I always love talking about it because you think, oh, it's an all-female wrestling show. Great. It was all females from top to bottom. So it was female referees, all-female talent in the ring, female ring announcer, female commentators, myself included. And I just loved that I was asked to do that first because I am such a girl's girl and a feminist and just someone who really tries to champion women's wrestling as Progress does. Progress, for one, if I can give it one huge compliment to start off, they really put women's wrestling in the spotlight where it deserves to be. And that show was just eye-opening for me to go, wow, they really care about women in wrestling and the way that they portray them so respectfully and they feature them so well. So that was my first time. And then I was talking to the gang around WrestleMania and I told them I'd love to be involved. And now I mostly do commentary. I've done interviews for them before, ring announcing and different things, but it's great to be part of something that kind of reminds you why you're a fan. I've been in this for, I want to say 22 years now, which is insane. I started at like barely 16. And you do get a little jaded. You're like, okay, I've seen a lot, kind of, things get recycled, but this has really made me become a fan again. So that's something that I wasn't sure would happen. But yeah, and like I've got the bug again, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, because do you see parallels with it? You know, because obviously, I think you were involved in what I would call the peak TNA Impact era. I think at that point it was the best product in the world. Everybody that's sort of been involved in it, that's still there now, or has moved on, just really set a tone for great wrestling. Do you see any parallels with that and what's going on the British independent scene?
I do for sure. And I find it funny and ironic that when I moved to the UK, so my husband's British, I moved here about 7 years ago. My sister lives here. So I've been visiting quite a bit. And I had seen a little bit of the wrestling shows here and there. I was working with Fight TV, who I still work with, and I was going to a few shows. So I got to see some things. I got to do autograph signings and be on some independent shows. So I saw a lot of really great talent. But then as I moved here, it just kept getting bigger and better and more exciting. And then with NXT coming in, we had World of Sport Wrestling, which I was so in love with as well. Another company that made me kind of go, wow, I have that that same love for wrestling that I always had. But with Progress, again, I knew that they were the biggest game in town. One time I was in Camden, this is way before I worked with them, and I remember like lines and lines of people in wrestling shirts, and I thought, this company is doing it, like they are a big deal. And so I just thought, wow, what an opportunity to get with the biggest company in the UK and the best. So I'm really grateful that they let me do that, and they sort of also helped me be very creative and sort of like give ideas about the new talent and things like that. They've treated me with absolute respect and always kind of, make me feel very comfortable, which is really nice. So again,
That's
it's nice
just
to have a company that you believe in, like back in Impact, I believed in what we were doing. I believed we were the best. WOS, I felt the same. And with this, I watched the shows. I'm like, I'll get teary eyed at some of the video productions because by the way, the video packages for Progress are the best ever. Insane.
I'm going to agree there. I cannot, and I've said this to Martin, I've said it to Lee. We've had them on interviews, and I just think what they've done since they took over, they really make you feel. If you sort of just turn up your first time, the video packages that kick off the show, they get you right in the heart of the feuds and what's going on with all the storylines. And then again, the little small segments, they really make it feel like a big, a really big event, which it obviously is, but to come from an independency where that's not always been the case, it just delivers it to another level. And I think it's quite good to hear you say about creative and stuff like that. How much do you get involved with that then? Is that something that is new to you, or is it, as you say, you've done a bit of impact, but is there a nice way you can take that on?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. I think it's the attention to detail, and those video packages, they're so cinematic, and that's the team that we have doing it is just absolutely incredible. But yeah, I mean, creatively, I'm never one to say, okay, I'm going to book a show, or I'm going to get involved in a storyline. But what I like to do is kind of what I was doing with Impact. I do a lot of social content. So if I have ideas for, say, things that just elevate what's already there with our creative doing the actual show, I'm just there to kind of give some pizzazz and get some splashy, some splashy content, and just sort of try to elevate everybody and motivate everybody. Especially with the girls. That's one thing that we're trying to do is perhaps do more photo shoots, make it more of a brand kind of that I was used to. In Impact, we had a whole knockouts division that was very, very polished, shall we say, and we had a lot of photo shoots. We did a lot of things that were just for the women's division. And so for me, that's what I'm excited to explore more, is to get the girls elevated to an even better level. And they're amazing as they are, but I just know that there's so many ideas that I have, especially because I love the photo shoot sides of things, the storyline side of things. Because I'm not a physical wrestler, I would never try to get involved in that side of things. But what I'm good at with the social content interviews, that's where I want to, lend a little bit of expertise, if I can say that about myself.
Oh no, I'm sure I can definitely say that I can agree with that in every way. And I guess then, how important is social media now to wrestling and to
Oh my gosh,
wrestlers?
it's everything. It is everything. And it's one of those things that I find it really interesting, not that often, but since I've gotten older and grizzled, I will meet a wrestler once in a while that's like, oh yeah, I'm not on social media. And I'm like, dude, Roman Reigns is on social media. Like, everybody, no one's above social media, and even in modeling and acting, I remember getting jobs in Orlando as a model, and I was not particularly right for the job. They didn't even want a redhead. They just went, oh, this girl has a huge following. It's a bridal shoot, I'll never forget. And at the bridal shoot, the photographer was like, we actually were going to go with someone else. When we saw your following, we knew that you would post about the brand that you're wearing. You'd post about the photographers and whatever. And I got that job because I was very active on social media. So I think we are in an age where yes, it can be harmful. It can be very, can bruise the ego once in a while. But if you have the confidence and you got to be like Teflon, let things slide off you. If you use it for personal gain and for positivity and just to promote what you're doing, it'll take you so far. There are wrestlers that, with all due respect, perhaps they're not the most seasoned or they're not the most polished in the ring, but damn if they're not entertaining and good at promoting themselves. That's a huge part of it. And if I were ever to hire wrestlers for anything, I would definitely look at their social media and see, how they come across on screen, how they are with the fans. It is insanely important in any industry, but wrestling for sure is one of those industries that you need to be on top of your social media game, and branding as well, your own brand.
It's true. And I guess how do you see it in the sense of, I don't know whether it's a heel or face, if that's still a thing now, but do you think that based on how your character comes across to an audience, whether they like you or whether they dislike you, that's how you should approach your social media? Like, and there's some wrestlers that are very open and they're very just themselves, let's say, and there's many that would play as you would see them in the ring, and you're almost scared of them. Do you think it's do you think it has to work one way or the other, or do you think
it's a great question, because what's tough about it is there are a lot of wrestlers that are perhaps a different character in a different promotion. So that would be very difficult if you were, a major heel in one company, then you went somewhere else and you had to be a face. Maybe they weren't as familiar with your character. But I think, I think shades of, everyone knows this is sports entertainment. We're not, it's not, that's the same kind of sport as it once was, where everyone was sort of snowed. But I think nowadays, as long as you are respectful to your character and respectful to storylines, you don't have to verbatim, follow everything and be completely in character every moment, because it is nice to get to see the human side of people as well. And like the silly side, like, with Grown Ass Women TV, by the way, every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern or 10 p.m. in the UK, myself, Mickey James, Lisa Marie Barron, we host the show, and we have to be even better at social media because we're promoting our show. But, we get a lot of feedback from fans that say they're happy to see us, like, behind the scenes. They can see silly sides of us and, not so serious, especially Mickey and Lisa and certain wrestlers that are seen as these, like, intangible entities. they humanize themselves by being silly on social media and showing some of their home life and behind the scenes and the not so glamorous side of being on the road. So for that reason, I think it's good to be respectful of storylines and characters, but also let the fans see a little glimpse into your life. Not to say that they need to get the entire curtain pulled back. Like, I'm very private about certain things and family and whatever, but that's the greatest thing about social media. It's your narrative and you can control how much people see.
It's a great way to put it, actually. It's a really, really good way to put it. And I guess then when it comes to Progress, who has been your standout? Who have you, I mean, there's so much talent there, but who do you love to see and who do you love working with?
Oh, it's, it's really hard because you don't want to play favorites, right? But I mean,
Of
there are
course you
some
don't
that
know.
I just go, oh my God, I can't wait for them to come out. Especially on commentary. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
they're going to be great. Names that come to mind immediately. Charles Crowley, such an eccentric, amazing character. We were talking about having him on God TV because like he would literally could read the phone book and it would be entertaining.
Yeah, he's great.
He's got an acting background. It's very obvious. He can play any character and does it so well. Makes you believe, right? Gene Money, another one, just an absolutely original personality. There's no one like Gene Money. He has the exact right sense of humor while still being a really talented wrestler. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He is incredibly good on social media, incredibly great on the mic. Obviously, and I might ruffle some feathers here, gotta be careful, but Spike Trevay, I know he's a
Yeah,
very polarizing figure. I
big
know that,
fan. Big fan. Yeah, big fan.
I'm a fan, but I feel bad saying I'm a fan because of all the dastardly deeds that he does and just his lack of respect for the fans and everything. But my gosh, he's just, you feel different when he comes out, when he comes into the Progress Wrestling scene and the fan. I mean, it's like the whole temperature in the room changes. He just has this knack for making you feel emotions, and it's really, really terrifying, but very impressive. Bullet's another one that I think is going to do amazing things. The 0121, those guys are incredible. Sunshine Machine. As far as the ladies, there's so many amazing ones. Lana Austin is somebody who,
Oh.
again, controversial. The girl can't carry a tune in a bucket, bless her heart, but she thinks she can, which is adorable, but ouch. But honestly, and now she's got this faction with her. She's got LA Taylor and Sky Smithson, and I'll tell you what, they are gaining so much traction. They are really, really picking up steam, and the entire women's division is really on notice when they come out. And I will say also that we have an amazing competitor in Rio. We have an amazing competitor in Kanji. There are so many great girls. There's so many. Lizzie Evo, there's Session Moth. They're all great. And you know what's great is there's a lot of diversity, especially in the women's division. There's a lot of diversity. No one is like each other. And I love to see that because, again, loving the women's wrestling scene, I love to, it's almost like they're different, it's like Baskin Robbins, different flavors for every taste.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it is a solid roster. I mean, I've been a Progress fan for as close as it's been around since 2012. And I think I've never been as excited every month as I have since, the guys came back in 2022. And I guess then, there's obviously the show coming up around All In Weekend. There's shows that's been announced that are outside of London. How, what's the ambitions? I've asked Martin Lee, have you got any sense of where the ambition is? Is it a fact? Is it a company that should really grow, or do you feel it's somewhere that could be a really solid independent company and travel the country?
Yeah, it's a great question. First of all, I would love to travel more. We do get up to Manchester, Birmingham, places like that. I would love to travel more just so we can, spread the word a bit more. I'd love to see us perhaps go live one day, maybe do some live pay-per-views. I would love for Progress to get involved. They're always around WrestleMania because our sponsor, Wrestle Tours, who's amazing, they make all the fans' dreams come true by bringing them to WrestleMania. And when Progress is in town, we have a lot of the wrestlers that will come to WrestleMania with us. I'd love to see them make a name for themselves in the US a little bit more and kind of get more global. But yeah, there's so many different avenues they could go. I will say that I loved that Progress was kind of seen as this very edgy, underground kind of cool company, and it is. I mean, it is very cool rock and roll, but there's also something to be said for it being more of a commercial brand, in the sense that, like, I love that we do certain venues, but if we were to branch out and get the name, it's too good to keep it only in mostly London. So I would just love for more people to get more eyeballs on it, and I just think there's too much talent. Hey, can anyone give us a hand with all this talent? There's too much talent in Progress Wrestling to keep it where we are now. I just know it's going to start to blow up, and fans will really, really understand what we're trying to achieve, and they'll understand that the storylines are really what is the heartbeat of the company. And as you said, with those video packages supporting that, it's like a cinematic world, and I want more people to be in that world with us.
Agreed, and I think that's a nice place for it to be in. It sold itself at the beginning on punk rock pro wrestling. That was great, and I think that
Yeah.
there's a place there. But like you say, it has the ability to grow, and long may that continue. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I guess your career has been a fantastic one. It'd be silly not to mention your time at Impact and TNA as it was then. Memories. What are some of the standout memories? If I ask you now,
Oh my
what
gosh. I'm trying to think. You know what's funny is someone just sent me some old screenshots of like the Sanjay days and the Jay Lethal days. I mean, that
Oh yeah.
obviously was the biggest storyline for me. I loved that. But I mean, even just getting signed to the company when I believe I was just barely 18 and being there for 9 years. And when somebody goes, "Oh, I grew up in that company," I'm like, no, 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 no. I legit grew up in that company for 9 years. And what I loved was I wanted to be a manager, right? I wanted to be Stephanie McMahon. I wanted to do the Miss Elizabeth stuff. And I loved that. I knew that I liked the talking part of it. I knew I never would want to be like a wrestler going after a belt and being that serious. But after the Jay Lethal and Sanjay storyline, I was able to then, start to write my own scripts, do more social content, as I was saying that I do with Progress, and get my own interviews done, start my own little shows like Pillow Talk, and get girly, do the photo shoots and things like that. But it really, I guess it's where I honed my skills as a presenter. Nowadays, outside of wrestling, I do Comic Cons. I host celebrity panels with Monopoly events. By the way, look them up. I'm, all over the country, up and down, and sometimes
Amazing.
outside of it, Monopoly doing that. And I would have never gotten those skills if it wasn't for people like Jeremy Borash, for Mike Weber, David Sahadi, people that gave me opportunities, Jeff Jarrett. And that's where I learned skills that I could take other places as well. So after the storyline with Jay and Sanjay, which was probably my highlight, I actually then started to kind of do things behind the scenes and on camera and started to see myself as a presenter. And that's really what I love doing the most, is the presenting side of things.
Amazing. Yeah, because when did you start? Did you start in 2005? Was it 2005?
2004, technically, yeah. It was, I think, towards
2004.
the end of 2004, but I'm trying to think what year it was. I think it was 2001 or no, 2003. I was on one show in Nashville. So I was living in
Right.
Orlando. I just had moved from Southern California, hence the SoCal name. And I moved to Orlando, Florida. And some of the guys, Roderick Strong being one of those people, by the way, random blast from the past.
Mm.
A few of us were asked to go up to TNA, to Nashville to go do a show there. So I did an Explosion. I managed
Right. Yeah.
Roderick and Cedric Strong. And yeah, and I met AJ. I met a bunch of people there, and they were a lovely company. But it was a much different company when they then came back to Orlando, Florida. Had the Fox Sports Net deal. Eventually, the highlight for me was when they had the Spike TV deal. That was some of the best memories ever. Started getting people like Ric Flair involved and Kurt Angle and people that I have like loved my whole life watching. The Hardys. Oh my gosh, Christy Hemme, everybody, Victoria. So yeah, Mickey. That was cool to kind of see that evolution, because it was a very different company from when I started to when I left. It was totally a different, not in a good or bad way, just different. Everyone evolved, the roster changes. Yeah, it was a long time there.
Yeah,
9 years is a big chunk of your life.
of course. And what was you say, the best era that you was there? Because I think a lot of people talk around that sort of 2004 to maybe 2008 as being a sweet spot where you delivered both with the feuds with the great wrestlers that came in from,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, that first face off. It's still amazing to this day. But,
Oh my God.
also what was happening, in the knockouts division from the beautiful people and Awesome
Yeah.
Kong and, Gail Kim, Mickey James. Like, what was your favorite time to be there? When did it feel at its most exciting?
I would say right in the middle there. Yeah. So I would say, like, I think my storyline with Jay and Sanjay was around 2008. So I would say like
Yeah.
2006, 2009 or so, because then, that's when all the imports started coming in. I loved the Hogan and Bischoff era, by the way. By the way, I've said this on so many interviews, so if I'm going to repeat myself, every time I mention this, fans will go, that era, that wasn't right. And Hogan and Bischoff did this, this, and that. And I'm like, that's interesting, because when I was there, physically there, they were amazing. They were helping all of the talent. They were lovely to me. They were easy to work with. They were getting our name on ESPN in places that we never thought would listen to anyone talking about professional wrestling. So I loved that era. I loved them. And I thought they did amazing things for the company. But yeah, I mean, so many of those feuds, Bobby Roode versus Kurt Angle, I would say is probably the best wrestling I've ever seen in my life. They were pit against each other so many times. And it was just like, I remember sitting at ringside being like, this is like a masterclass every time. But yeah, I think, the addition of Ric Flair, Kurt Angle, we just had Tracy Brooks on, who's now back in the mix. Very exciting. And we were
Yeah.
talking about like main event mafia. The Aces and Eights storylines were
Yeah.
amazing with Brooke
Yeah.
Hogan and that Bubba. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Bully Ray and Brooke Hogan and the wedding. Yeah, there were so many great moments. And I also was evolving too, not just the presenting side, but as a ring announcer, they were letting me, thanks to Jeremy Borash, they were letting me do I'm not going to say house shows. We're supposed to say untelevised live events. So
Right, I
I was on
gotcha.
the road, with all the guys, ring announcing and like learning. Like I always tell this one story, and it helps, for example, at Comic Cons, where I was just learning how to, kind of BS in front of a crowd. You have to just improv, right? And one time the ring broke and it was broken for like an hour. So I had to just vamp. I had to just like, okay, let's do a lottery. Okay, let's do a raffle, whatever. And where are you from? And do all this kind of stuff like a show person.
Yeah.
And in that moment of like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I learned so much how to think on my feet. And that those TV or untelevised live events, those loops as we call them, are really what shaped me as a presenter, as an announcer, and helped me to think on my feet. And it's the art of improv, and I learned it through wrestling.
That's amazing. And a lot of people say that those untelevised events are where you learn how to work a crowd, because you're not just working for the camera, you're actually seeing engaging reaction, especially if you're presenting, you're just knowing what
Yeah.
works, what doesn't. And
Everyone's
I
not
get
on like pins and needles at a show like that. Like, and the guys goof off a little more. You see, and even when you go to like WWE and you watch a live event,
yeah.
yeah, it's just because there's no time constraints. There's no like, we're on TV, we're live. It's you sort of just kind of get to relax, and you do learn a lot in those moments.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I guess then, who did you learn the most from in your time there? Is there a couple of standout names?
I think I can think of one. I mean, I have a lot of people, and in terms of like, business sense, and I was around Mike Weber, who is the COO of Fight TV, and he gave me so many opportunities. But honestly, who I learned the most from in Impact Wrestling by far, and I cannot believe I was so lucky to be under his tutelage and get to watch him and talk about improv and thinking on the fly. Jeremy Borash is brilliant. He's probably the most underrated guy in wrestling ever, in the sense of just how smart he is, how good he is at improv, how his mind works for the business. All of the so many ideas came from Jeremy Borash, and for me, I literally just got to watch him work. And also, he's probably the funniest person ever. He's hysterical, but he's just such a smart guy to learn from. And I felt really blessed that I could sit there and watch him do what he did best, and kind of, be his student. I'm still a student of the game, but he is definitely that. When you said, who did I learn from the most? That's immediately, it's got to be Jeremy Borash.
Yeah, I've never heard anything bad, but always praising about him. And it just he's obviously gone on to do a major stuff, right? And
My
and
gosh,
praise
so
to
proud.
him.
They are lucky to have Jeremy Borash. WWE, listen, they are so lucky to have a mind like his and work ethic like he has, and all of the talent that gets to learn from him in NXT. My gosh, they are blessed.
Yeah, I can imagine. And do you miss being on the road like that? Or do you think that was perfect for the time it was?
I'm glad you said that, because I always
Yeah.
think that it was the perfect time, because now that I'm married, I'm like, it's different to be, young and in your 20s and single, and just, you don't have to worry about anyone like at home waiting for you. So for that reason, it was the perfect time. But I luckily still get to be on the road a lot with Comic Cons and wrestling shows, and then I get travel to America as much as I can to do shows there. So it's the perfect amount of time on the road for me now, because I do get very bored at home, but I'm very
Yeah.
seldom at home.
All right.
And the
Okay.
great thing now is like I've learned to make all of these trips work for me. So if he's available, my husband will come with me. We make it, we'll
Ah,
go early or stay late. We make it a whole fun thing, and we do our own thing. I try to see parts of the city that I used to never, I didn't ever care, but I never had time. And now I make the time to do it. So the travel has actually gotten better, more relaxed, and way more enjoyable. Again, especially because my husband can come with me some of these times. So yeah, that's really fun. And thank God, I mean, with all due respect to moms out there, I don't have children. I don't even have a dog because I'm not home enough. But it's
ah.
great to have that freedom to be able to travel and not have to worry about, oh my God, I feel guilty that I'm missing a school play, or you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I hear you there. And I guess then, you're really doing well at Progress, seem to be loving it. And that's always good to hear, as I'm a major Progress fan. But what other ambitions are there in wrestling? Or, is there anything that you feel you've not achieved and you want to?
I mean, I don't know. I've never really worked for WWE. I don't know that that would be in the cards. Number one, I think it would depend on, if they were, you have to, as you get older, make things work for you. I don't see myself leaving Progress anytime soon. If I could ever do a little bit for, other companies, that's great. We try to work with other companies and be friendly with other companies, which is very cool of Progress, by the way. Very progressive, pun intended, because
Mm.
even on the indies when I was starting in like Florida, it was very much like, don't work for this person. It's not like that with Progress. They're very cool. But yeah, I don't really have anything on the bucket list per se. I mean, I've done commentary, I've done managing, I've even wrestled a bit, which was horrible. I bruised like a peach. But yeah, I never feel like there's much left to be done. I do wish that WS would have continued for another season or two. I
Yeah.
had so much fun working there. But yeah, I think I'd like to, keep progressing in Progress. And I think it's sort of my time to kind of pay it forward and help other talent. Not that I'm, I'm 37. I'm not like, over the hill yet. But at the same time, because I do other things and I have other interests outside of wrestling, it's even more fun now to kind of get with the younger talent and get them to shine. And I don't need any more time to shine. I've had a lot of cool things happen in my career. But yeah, I'm in a really good space, and Progress again is to thank for that, because it's let me be a fan again. It's let me remember all the reasons why I love wrestling.
Oh,
And if there's any fans watching this that aren't familiar with Progress and maybe they're kind of feeling jaded or they watch the same thing over and over, there's nothing else like Progress Wrestling. And if you can come to a show or watch online, give it a chance, and definitely let me know what you think on social media, because I know you'll love it.
I agree there. And I guess one more question or two, I'll start with this one. But if you could get anyone from sort of across the pond, from WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, to come and have a match at the Electric Ballroom in front of 700 crazy fans, who would it be? Or a couple of names.
Oh, I'm trying to think. And a lot of them are obviously employed elsewhere. I'll name some that I know that would have explosive matches, whether it would happen ever or not.
Yeah.
I immediately think of a guy like Adam Cole, who I think is the
He was
absolute
here before. He was great
perfect.
on
Yeah,
Progress. Yeah.
he is the total package. Ticks every box. He's amazing. Dolph Ziggler, I think, is someone that is just incredible. Bobby Roode. Oh my gosh, as far as Impact, there are so many. I would love to see EY in Progress one day. I think that'd be amazing. Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah.
Gosh, there's so many, and obviously they're all my friends, so it'd just be selfish for me to come in and hang out with them. Also, as far as like people that could come and like either consult or kind of give some knowledge, drop some knowledge, guys like Chavo Guerrero, guys like Al Snow, that I know our Progress roster grew up watching and they love. But those two guys come to mind, meaning like they just have such great minds for the business, and it would be cool to see them kind of get this fresh start by going to Progress and getting to know each character, each wrestler, and kind of seeing what they would do with, if they had a position where they could, help the younger talent. And I know they would.
Amazing. And finally, it's clobbering time. What can we expect?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's clobbering time, but it is also our doubleheader with Defy Wrestling. So there are so many things to look forward to. Obviously, follow us on social media, progresswrestling.com. And of course, Defy, again, that just proves how amazing Progress is to kind of get other promotions involved. And I know that there might be some tussles between the two companies. We'll see. We have Spike Trevay, obviously, as our champion, and we have had Kid Lycos, who is really on a great trajectory. And I know it's Kid Lycos, he's going to be facing Bullet, which is amazing, but that's kind of the hurdle he has to get over to then face Spike Trevay. Spike's going to be facing Kid Lycos too, so that'll be amazing. We've got some amazing women's matches as well. And obviously Defy, we want to give them a shout out and all the love, because it's not even going to be just one show to look forward to. It's two. It's an entire day full of wrestling, and the talent speaks for themselves. But again, progresswrestling.com. If you haven't gotten tickets, get them now. I will be your host for the event, and I can't wait. It's always a great crowd, and a really polite crowd. Like, they're funny and rowdy, but they're actually really respectful and lovely people. Even though it's a crazy rock and roll town, Camden in London, it's a really cool family vibe.
Wow, brilliant. Val, thank you so much for your time. It's been so good to talk to you. I'll be at Progress. I'm always there. I'll have to come and say hello. But
yes, please do. Let's get a selfie.
Yeah, we will do indeed. Thank you so much. Have a good evening, and it's clobbering time.
It is. See you there.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.